This is the infamous video that I was working on just before I lost the whole kit and caboodle. The video that wouldn't work right, so I rebooted and Windows deleted all of my content. And it hasn't worked right for a couple of attempts thereafter, so here's hoping that it does now. So while you're watching, curse this video a little more than you do the rest. It's earned it. This time, I return to Dennis Prager with PragerU, where I'm going to show that when it comes to religion, Dennis Prager is off his rocker. He has no intellectual integrity whatsoever, and his entire reason for believing it's true is because it feels good. That's it. And in that, he's no different than any other religious apologist. So let's watch as Dennis makes a fool of himself as he tries to claim that there has to be an afterlife and why no one in their right mind should ever take him seriously.
Is there an afterlife? Life after this life ends?
Not so far as we can tell. There certainly isn't any evidence for an afterlife, and I'm sure that you won't have a damn thing to present. Wishful thinking isn't proof.
There probably isn't a human being who hasn't asked this question at one time or another.
Probably not, but rational people are only concerned with what actually is, not with what you wish was true. So we're still at no, not until there's objectively verifiable evidence for one. Got any?
And here's the answer.
Oh, please, Dennis, don't keep us waiting. Tell us.
If there is a God, there is an afterlife.
Then the answer remains no, because there's no evidence for a God either. Thanks for clearing that up for us, Dennis. Oh wait, he wasn't done, was he?
It's that simple. And here's why. First, this life is filled with an immeasurable amount of injustice and suffering.
Welcome to reality, Dennis. You can't be so irrational that you think that the world owes you justice, can you?
The only way there can be some ultimate justice for victims of evil is if there is an afterlife.
Why do you think there will ever be ultimate justice for anyone? Where did you get that insane idea? Oh, right, your ridiculous religious beliefs. Well, let me tell you about this little thing called reality that doesn't give a damn what makes you feel good and what doesn't. You really need to get a grip, Dennis.
And the only way comfort is available to those who suffer unjustly, from painful disease and premature death to the death of a child, is if there is an afterlife.
Do I have to ask where you got any of these insane ideas from, or did I already answer that? Because for anyone who thinks that Dennis Prager is sane, at least when it comes to his religious beliefs, I think this is a prime example that they're wrong. He's acting out of pure emotional wishful thinking, not anything rational, not anything with evidence or reason, just feelings, because he wants it to be true. This guy is a total religious nutball.
But such an afterlife exists only if there is a good and just God.
Only if your irrational ramblings are true, which you have no evidence of any kind that they are. Just because you want there to be ultimate justice doesn't mean there is. Just because you want there to be ultimate comfort doesn't mean it's real. Nobody is concerned with his feelings, only with his facts, and I don't think Dennis Prager would know a religious fact if it bit him.
A good and just God provides a way to compensate for all the unjust suffering in this world.
You mean the unjust suffering that your supposed good and just God created and ensured happened? Because you're still talking about a deity that your holy book claims created everything, knowing full well how it would all turn out, and still did it that way. So your God is a douchebag, and you're just coming up with excuses why he can screw it all up and still get off scot-free in the end.
Second, since God is not physical, the physical world is not the only reality.
Since God is not demonstrably existent, you mean?
There is also a non-physical reality.
Which, again, is a pointless, empty claim for which you have no evidence whatsoever. We therefore have no reason to take any of your unsupported beliefs seriously. In fact, you have no reason to think you know a thing about this imaginary God of yours in the first place, and until you can present a reason why we should take any of your arguments seriously, you're just wasting everyone's time.
And we humans have a part of us which, being non-physical, survives the death of our body.
Evidence, please. Let us know when you have some.
We call it the soul.
Hey, you can call it mashed potatoes for all I care. You can produce no objectively verifiable evidence that this thing that you want to believe is real actually is. This is exactly where the religious fail so utterly miserably, because they can't separate what they wish was true from what they can prove is true.
But if there is no God, this physical life is all there is.
Okay, you say that like it's a bad thing. Rational people are not interested in your irrational jabbering. We care only what can be proven, and absolutely nothing you are saying can be.
So, no God, no soul, no afterlife.
Wow, he actually got something right. Why do I think he'll try to spin things so his side comes out on top? Tons of experience with the religious doing exactly that? Damn straight.
Now, of course, those who doubt God's existence have every reason to doubt an afterlife. But if you believe in a good God, then you have to believe there's an afterlife.
Funny, there are plenty of religions out there that don't believe in an afterlife. Confucianism doesn't. Neither do most forms of Buddhism. Neither do smaller religions like Aladara or Falun Gong or Jainism or even many forms of Judaism. Which is funny that Dennis Prager doesn't know that, considering he pretends to be Jewish.
If you say you believe in God but not in an afterlife, the God you believe in is not only not good, that God is cruel.
Says who? And who says that gods have to be good? There are plenty of religions out there that believe in some pretty cruel gods. Hell, the God of the Bible is a complete asshole. Sure, people like Dennis refuse to talk about that, but it doesn't stop it from being true.
That God made a world filled with unjust suffering and just left it at that.
And why did the God of the Bible do that? Because if you read the Bible, that's exactly what God did. How do you rationalize that again, Dennis?
Now, some people who don't believe in an afterlife offer their own version of immortality.
No, we don't. And I'm sure he'll get all of this wrong, as he does with pretty much everything else. Let's watch.
I once attended a funeral where the man officiating said, "While there is no afterlife, we do live on, through our good works and in the memories of loved ones."
And as I've said in other videos, those words are meant for the people left behind, not for the people who are dead. The people who are dead don't care. They're dead.
That's what a lot of people who reject an afterlife want to believe.
I don't care what people want to believe. I care what is actually and demonstrably true in factual reality. I'm sorry you couldn't care less.
But the idea that human beings live on through their good works or through the memories of loved ones, which generally means a person's children or grandchildren, is simply meaningless.
Yes, it is. So what? As I said, those concepts are meant to make those left behind feel better. They're not some grand spiritual truth to be taken to heart. When you're dead, you're dead. Your consciousness winks out. Your body starts to rot. We throw you in a hole, or we burn your remains to a cinder, and everything that you were simply vanishes. The only people who care at that point are the people who have to keep living. Telling them lies, whether they're religious or secular lies, is meant to help them cope. It isn't real, Dennis. Grow up.
If people live on through their good works, then children who die don't live on.
Nope. learn to tell the difference between a comforting lie and an uncomfortable truth. Now, I don't think we ought to be lying to anyone. I think people ought to be able to deal with reality regardless of how uncomfortable the real world actually is. Some people can't, and they turn to religious stupidity. Guess which side of the intellectual divide Dennis Prager is on?
The number of good works most children are even capable of is minuscule.
Probably 0. Doesn't change the fact that it's to make those left behind feel better.
As for babies who die, well, babies can't engage in good works at all, so I guess they just don't live on.
Nope. Welcome to reality.
Anyway, the truth is that bad works usually live on longer than nearly any good works.
Clearly, Dennis here doesn't recognize that the whole live on nonsense is just for emotional comfort. It's not real. When you're dead, no matter how that makes you feel.
In fact, if works make us immortal, Hitler, with all the evil he did, is far more immortal than the kindest people on earth.
Usually. So what? Because again, it doesn't matter how you feel about any of this. The reality is that the dead don't care about who and what remains behind. They're dead. They're not capable of caring about anything. And when you're dead, you won't be either, no matter what absurd delusional beliefs you hold right now. Reality doesn't give a damn about your feelings.
As for living on in the memories of our children, what do we say to those who have no children? Sorry, you don't live on.
Allow me to facepalm, because Dennis here really has no idea what empty platitudes these are and are intended to be. These are for people who don't like the reality of death. It doesn't stop it from being a reality, but it's meant to comfort those people who have become terrified when coming face to face with their own mortality. Because again, the dead don't care. All of this is made up nonsense, just like your imaginary afterlife. It's meant to provide relief to the delusional. It has nothing at all to do with the dead.
Moreover, living on in anyone's memory, as beautiful as that is not the same as immortality or an afterlife.
No, it's exactly the same, because none of them are real. It's all just wishful thinking. The idea that you'll see your loved ones again in heaven is just absurd. They're gone, and you'll be gone too. Whatever you were will blink out like a light bulb, and you will cease to exist in any meaningful way. This is the reality that you live in, whether you like it or not. Deal with it.
As Woody Allen put it, I don't want to achieve immortality through my work. I want to achieve it through not dying.
Woody Allen is a comedian, which apparently Dennis here doesn't realize. Allen is also an atheist, so nothing he has to say is going to be favorable to religion. Either Dennis is ignorant or he's dishonest to even bring Woody Allen into this.
If there's no afterlife, we don't live on. Period. Let's be honest enough to acknowledge that.
And no one with a clue about reality thinks we do. I don't care if you want to live on. You don't. Too bad. So sad. Deal with it.
If there's no afterlife, none of us will ever again be with those we most love and who love us.
And we won't. Just because you want to doesn't mean you get to. Why is this so hard for the religious to understand?
If there's no afterlife, neither anyone murdered nor any murderer will ever receive ultimate justice.
Nope, they won't. Sorry that hurt your feelings, Dennis, but that's what it is.
If there's no afterlife, this life, for the vast majority of people who ever lived, and for those alive now, is a meaningless crapshoot.
Yes, it is. You keep saying it like it's a bad thing. You need to grow up and deal with the reality as it is, not how you desperately wish it was. This is what life is. It's all life has ever been. It's all life will ever be. It doesn't matter if that makes you happy, and it doesn't matter if that makes you miserable. That's what life is. That's all that life is. Stop being an immature child and deal with reality.
Finally, people always ask me, so what happens in the afterlife? To which I can only respond, I don't know.
Why do you think there's an afterlife? You don't know, because you've been indoctrinated into an emotionally comforting lie called religion, and you value that emotional comfort more than you value dealing with a demonstrable reality. Please explain to me why someone your age hasn't come to grips with the real world yet.
But I do know this.
No, you believe this. There is a difference.
My belief in God and the afterlife keeps me sane.
No, it keeps you happy. Now, maybe you're just particularly weak-willed, weak-minded, and overly emotional like most religious people. That's really not something you ought to be proud of.
The thought that this life is all there is means that torturers get away with the horrors they have engaged in.
Yep, sure does. Doesn't stop it from being true.
It means that this life is random and pointless.
Yep, sure does. Still doesn't stop it from being true.
And it means that I will never again see anyone I love.
Yep, sure does. Doesn't stop it from being true. Are we seeing a pattern here?
This would drive me mad.
Because you refuse to deal with reality as it actually is, maybe. Of course, I think that you're already mad. It's the very definition of delusion, which is an idiosyncratic belief or impression that is firmly maintained despite being contradicted by what's generally accepted by reality or by rational argument. Typically a symptom of mental disorder. You, Dennis Prager, fit the definition of insanity. Go figure.
In fact, I don't see how it wouldn't drive anyone mad who cares about suffering and who loves anyone.
Because you're so deluded into this religious mental poison that you can't imagine everyone isn't just like you. It's one of the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, that you're somehow the standard by which everyone should be held. There's something seriously wrong with you, Dennis. Seek professional help.
So is there an afterlife?
You still haven't presented any evidence. You just want there to be one. That's just logical fallacy after logical fallacy after logical fallacy.
If there is a God, of course there is.
And since we still have no evidence of any kind that there's a God, yeah, you know.
I'm Dennis Prager.
And you're out of your mind. The very idea that you are at all credible when it comes to religion is absurd on its face. And this goes to show that one of the claims routinely made by the religious is just ridiculously false. The idea that anyone who's brilliant in one field is automatically brilliant in all fields is stupid. The belief that just because someone is well respected in some field of science, therefore they ought to be well respected in their religious beliefs, is utterly farcical. Now, there are some things that I can't agree with Dennis Prager on, but religion is not and will never be one of them, because when it comes to religion, he, like every other apologist, is completely unhinged. And as this video shows, he has nothing but emotion to go on. No evidence, no rationality, no intellect, just feelings, just emotions. And for anyone who thinks that's a good way to live your life, you need to seek some professional mental help, just like Dennis Prager does.